Thank you very much. Before we formally start the meeting, I will go to each councillor present in turn to confirm that they can hear and be heard. This is a legal requirement for virtual meetings. Where practicable, please also have your video switched on so that you can be seen by those in attendance and the public watching. So I'll begin with the Cabinet members. Councillor Norman.
I can see and hear you, Leader.
Thank you. Councillor Chowns.
Yes, thanks, Leader. I can see and hear you.
Councillor Crockett.
Yes, thanks, Leader. I can see and hear you.
Councillor Davis.
Yes, Leader, I can see and hear you.
Councillor Harrington.
Yes, Leader, I can see and hear you.
Thank you. Councillor Harvey.
Yes, I can see and hear you.
And Councillor Tyler.
Yes, Leader, I can see and hear you. Thank you.
Then Cabinet Support members, Councillor Bartlett.
Yes, Leader, I can see and hear you.
Councillor Hardwick.
Good afternoon, Leader. I can see and hear you.
Councillor Ginman.
Good afternoon, Leader. I can see and hear you.
Thank you. Councillor Selden.
Good afternoon, Leader. Yes, I can see and hear you.
And Councillor Watson.
Good afternoon, Leader. I can hear and see you as well. Thank you.
And then the group leaders, I'll mention Terry James, but I'm told his apologies have been sent. So Councillor James. I assume you're not with us. Councillor Lester.
Yes, I can see and hear you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Matthews.
Yes, I can see and hear you, Leader.
Thank you. Councillor Marsh.
Thank you, Leader. I can see and hear you.
Councillor Gandy.
I can see and hear you.
Thank you. And finally, Councillor Swinglehurst.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I can see and hear you.
Thank you. There are also a number of officers attending who will be introduced as they are called upon. Thank you. I will now formally open the meeting. The agenda papers and other relevant information for this meeting are available for public viewing on the Herefordshire Council website. The Council is streaming this meeting live on the Herefordshire Council YouTube channel and making an official recording. To ensure that recording quality is maintained, please speak as clearly as possible and keep background noise to a minimum. Microphones should be muted when you're not speaking. Please ensure that mobile phones and other devices are turned to silent. Others are permitted to film, photograph and record our public meetings, provided that it does not disrupt the business of the meeting. As we move through the agenda, in addition to discussion by Cabinet members, I will invite group leaders or their representatives in turn to provide views and questions from their group on each item. Where appropriate, I will also call on scrutiny chairpersons to comment on behalf of their committee. If any attendee loses connection and it is not possible to recover the connection within a reasonable amount of time, the meeting will continue as long as a quorum of Cabinet members remains able to hear the proceedings and be heard. Voting will be undertaken electronically using the voting software within the virtual meeting platform. Only Cabinet members may vote. In the event that electronic voting is not possible to use or there is a technical failure, I will ask each Cabinet member by means of a roll call to indicate if they are for, against or abstaining. The results of the roll call will only be recorded in the minutes of the meeting where there is a requirement to do so. If a Cabinet member has not been present for the whole of the discussion on an item due to technical failure, they should not vote on that item. So turning to the agenda for the meeting, first of all, apologies for absence. Have any apologies been notified to the clerk?
I have no apologies from members of the Cabinet, Leader, and we've just noted Councillor James's apologies.
Thank you. Declarations of interest. Are there any Schedule 1, Schedule 2 or other interests for items on the agenda today? I hear none. Item 3, minutes of the previous meeting. No matters of accuracy have been notified to the monitoring officer, so I will ask Cabinet members to confirm that they agree the minutes by an electronic vote. Non-voting attendees will be moved to a breakout room for a few moments. They will be automatically returned to the main room when all eligible votes have been cast. Please can non-voting attendees now be moved out of the main room and the number of voting members be confirmed.
There are the 8 voting members for this vote, Chair.
Thank you. Please bring up the voting screen. We're pretty familiar with this now. We vote for, against, or abstain, and then press the submit button.
Chair, I can confirm all votes in and the minutes have been approved unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So we then move on to the next item, which is to receive questions from members of the public. We have received 2 questions and responses have been published as a supplement to the agenda papers. Those who have submitted questions have been given the opportunity to submit a written supplementary or to send an audio or video recording or join the meeting questions live. I will now ask the clerk to confirm how many supplemental questions are to be received. First of all, from Mr. P. Mackay.
Mr. Mackay has submitted a written supplementary, Leader, so we'll share that with the meeting and I will read it for him.
Thank you very much.
Whilst it may not be intended to investigate all Code 12 streets, may it be assumed that when the local street gazetteer is viewable in its different formats per the Cabinet meeting of 24th September and the blue anomaly triangles report reinstated per Council meeting of 9th of October, enabling those Code 12 streets that satisfy the key aims of the Rights of Way Improvement Plan draft by filling obvious gaps, etc., to be identified, would be investigated whether or not subject of a formal application.
So I think Councillor Harrington, are you able to respond to that, or do you want to?
Well, rather than, I mean, I think I know what Mr. McKay is asking, but he is very technically competent, and I'm not necessarily saying I was in regard to this. So I think I know what he's asking. I will ask for officers to provide a response. I mean, we have agreed to adopt 2 of his previous suggestions, essentially, and he's asking a further question. So let us give him a proper answer, which I'm not able to do.
Yeah, I think that's very appropriate. The second question is from Mr. A. Hunt. Has he provided a supplemental question?
He has indeed, Leader. Again, he's provided a written supplementary. And his question is, now that Herefordshire Council have decided to review the zebra crossing on the B4203 in Bromyard, can the crossing continue to be used in its current state?
Again, Councillor Harrington, I don't know, has there been a particular issue with this?
Yeah, there's some background to this, which we've answered. The short answer is yes, but I can double check that for Mr. Hunt. The issue here is that a crossing that was put in back in 2000, I believe, with the cooperation of the town council, was not the guidance that's provided, and it is guidance, was not possible to be used completely to put this crossing in. So it was the question that Mr. Hunt is raising: is it safe? And as there are some issues with it in terms of KSIs, what they called, issues of accidents, and also that the ward councillor, Councillor Shaw, has raised issues with me. I think it's safe that we review it, and we're reviewing it quickly. But I don't feel that it should not be used, because it would be impossible for a start to stop people crossing the road at that point. So it is better to try and do it under the current auspices of the crossing.
Okay.
It's a fair question. I shall get him a response.
Thank you, Councillor Harrington. So the other question is from a Councillor Shaw, I think. And does Councillor Shaw have a supplemental question? Looks as if it's come up on the screen.
Yes, Leader, he does have a written supplementary. He's not able to attend the meeting today to ask it. He thanks the Cabinet Member and officers for the update provided. His supplementary question is that his previous comparative data from June 2017 illustrates that the then Conservative administration spend in county was 47% and in county and neighbouring counties was 77%. As these figures are so similar to that now being achieved, he suggests that the data record become part of the regular performance data set reported to Council so that future trends can be monitored. As Cabinet Member for Finance tabled at Council a fortnight ago, the recommendation that the Hereford Leisure Centre received an additional 0.5 million spend for repairs using the University of Worcester Framework Agreement for procurement rather than open tender. Are you happy that such frameworks provide the best value for money, and were you aware that none of the contractors in this framework are Herefordshire-based companies?
Councillor Harvey, I don't know whether you're in a position to respond to that. You might want some more information for the question.
Yeah, it sort of crosses my portfolio and Councillor Davis's on contracts. So rather than wing it in the room, I'd like to provide Councillor Shaw with a written reply to that.
Thank you. So I think we then move on, I think, to the substance of this meeting, which is the 2021-22 budget setting and consultation. And this is all quite difficult with the government not having made a commitment to the finance for next year. We don't know quite when that's going to be finally announced. So it does make planning for the future really quite difficult, and the impact of COVID on our finances for next year. So this is for discussion, and it's to agree the approach for consultation to inform the 2021-22 budget and developing the medium-term financial strategy, and also to agree an in-year review of the capital investment budget. The items begin on page 11 of the agenda pack. And it's over to you, Councillor Harvey, to introduce this one. Thank you.
And thank you, Leader. Yes, this report is really setting out the timetable and the process by which we'll go through the development of the budget this year, and the timetable is set out at paragraph 14. This year, even more so than previous years, it's likely to be largely an online consultation because of COVID and the issues with meeting up in person and having face-to-face engagement. However, that said, we will be making every effort to engage in a number of different ways, and with that in mind, the intention is to bring on board some support from some expert consultants in undertaking public consultations, so that we can extend our reach wherever possible. I would like to highlight that the online survey, which will be the main public opportunity to comment on the budget, is running from the 19th of December through to the 8th of January. It's not our preference to run public consultations over holiday periods, particularly Christmas and the New Year. Sometimes it's very difficult to gain public attention for these sorts of things when people's attention is focused elsewhere, as it will be at this time. However, the timetable every year makes it likely that there will be some overlap with the Christmas period in consulting with the public in any meaningful way. And it is the case again this year that time frame will need to be used. However, what we are intending to do is to signal from now on that survey will be taking place and that public consultation will be occurring then. And in the consultations that we have with parish and town councils and with the business community, we will again be highlighting the online survey period and asking that parish councils and businesses make sure that as best as they can that people are aware in advance that they may want to cast an eye in the direction of the budget survey when they've finished the turkey and the turkey curry and the chocolate oranges and all the Brazils in the bottom of the Christmas stockings. So that said, we will then we will hopefully get a decent response. We did have a good response last year. And we're hoping that the extra support we get from consultation experts will help us to make the difference during the COVID restrictions. And then the remainder of the timetable goes into the statutory consultations that we need to undertake with scrutiny committees leading up to Cabinet and then the council meeting for tax setting, budget setting, which will be in February as it is most years. So very happy to hear comments and any concerns or queries that are raised about the proposed timetable or process for this year, and open it up for comments and questions.
Councillor Davis.
Thanks for that. Just a couple of issues, I guess, or questions. Take them as you will. I'll put a question mark on the end and then they become a question. With regards to the timeline, it would be wrong of me to not say at this point that we also at that time have the huge waste consultation coming out, which will be asking for comments on some very different ways of us collecting waste. What assurances can we have that both consultations will complement rather than compete with each other? And the second question is around equalities. We know that in the world of COVID that a lot of this will be done online. How do we ensure that we are contacting those hard to reach individuals that might not be okay with online presence? And similarly, how are we dealing with people who've got disabilities that perhaps aren't able to see or hear on a platform like this?
Well, that's one of the reasons why we're bringing the consultants in. We'll be putting an engagement plan together with them and agreeing that specifically in order to deal with some of the issues that you raised there, make sure that we are reaching out to hard to reach groups. As far as the waste consultation is concerned, we very often have consultations running on the council website and out there in the world in parallel with one another, and we will be making every effort, I'm sure, to make sure that both of these consultations have high visibility and are reaching the community and community interest groups that they apply to. The budget consultation is an acquired taste. Not everybody, it doesn't light everybody's fire. I'm hoping that we will get really useful and helpful comments in from people on both consultations, but it may be that actually we're aiming at quite different interest groups in terms of the people who are likely to respond to each. But I think the more we can improve our ability to consult and to reach people, particularly during COVID, I think the better it will stand us in good stead for the future. So I'm hoping that one of the things that we will be able to do along the way is be finding out what works and what doesn't work and building on that each time, so that we're a little better next time than we were the last time. And hopefully if we go forward in that way, we'll reach more people and be better at being able to target consultations to particular interest groups. But I would encourage anybody watching this who is interested in either waste or our finances, or in fact anything else that the council does. It is possible to sign up for alerts on the council website for a range of topic specific communications, where you get emails sent to you when things are being raised, queries are being raised, or topics are being discussed that are relevant to the areas of interest that you've identified that you want to know more about. So please have a look at signing up to automated alerts on the council website, and that way you won't miss out on exciting budget consultations in the future.
Liz, it's just a plea really, is that if we can make sure that we do consult, even if the consultants are experienced, can we make sure that we consult with the relevant equality groups around the county? We've got some really good disabled groups around the county that will be able to help engage with some of our hard to reach groups. Thank you.
Councillor Chowns.
Thanks. Thank you, Councillor Harvey. I'm really glad that another week has been found to kind of extend the consultation period, even though it is, still pretty much all over Christmas. Yeah, and none of us, as you've said, think that that's ideal. My question is there going to be an opportunity for councillors to feed into the framing of that consultation? Certainly sometimes in previous years, we've had the opportunity to kind of look at the draft of the questions that are going to be asked. Will there be an opportunity for that? Because as the Yes Minister sketch demonstrated so well, what you get out of a consultation depends on how you frame it. And it would be really useful to be able to kind of make sure that lessons have been learned from some previous year's consultations when questions have been a bit too narrow. I'm not at all implying that I'm sure your consultation will be marvellously designed, Councillor Harvey, but will there be that opportunity for it to be reviewed before it goes out?
Well, I sincerely hope so. I mean, we will be taking advice from the experts. I mean, undoubtedly, there will be some quite tough choices to make because of the holes that are opening up in the council's finances as a consequence of COVID. But that's happening to councils across the whole country, and we will have our own variant of that. Those difficult decisions to make. So I think we will do our best to make the questions clear and relevant, and will the draft hopefully the draft questionnaire will be able to be discussed with councillors in some form, certainly with cabinet. If there are councillors who are particularly interested in taking a look at it before it goes out, maybe if they make their group leaders aware, then we can look at finding a way of having a discussion session on that before the button gets pressed on it, maybe.
Thank you. Councillor Crockett.
Thank you, Leader. Thanks, Councillor Harvey. Difficult time. It's going to be a very difficult budget to set after years of austerity, and obviously, as you've mentioned, COVID and the floods that we've had this year. So it's going to be a very difficult and interesting few months leading up to the setting of this programme. I'm a bit of a half full glass on this time of the consultation. I think there will be more people on leave and home working at that point. and therefore perhaps have more opportunity to take part. So I don't see that as an issue. I see it as a bit of a positive, and that's the time I'll be doing it, hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this is a question probably for the Section 151 officer. When is it anticipated the government are going to make a statement about future funding, and how confident are you that that's going to be a one-off and a certain thing, and they're not later going to change things?
Thank you, Leader. During this COVID period, government is having to deal with an enormous amount of challenges. The latest advice we've been given is that we will get the settlement, so that's when they tell local government the arrangements they're putting in place before Christmas. I suspect that will be, just a few days before Christmas, so it will be quite tight against the consultation process. And we are being told that will be the final settlement. But when we look back at history, governments have been known to change the amounts or the arrangements for settlement. So I can't give you a definitive answer as to when exactly we will get it, but we've been told just before Christmas. So we're expecting that to be just a few days before Christmas. And we're being told that it will be the certain number. So we're certainly planning on that being the arrangement. But as you can imagine, we have contingency plans just in case things do change, which is partly why we have a budget consultation process. And the budget will appear at Cabinet in January, on its way to full council in February.
Thank you. Any other questions at the moment from, yes, Councillor Tyler?
Yes, thank you, Leader. Just really going to speak to Section 151 officer. If there are COVID measures that do take precedent in the next couple of months, could this have an impact on the budget forecast and when it goes to scrutiny, or would it still stay online on time through all this pandemic that's going on at the moment?
The plan is that we will meet the deadlines in the timetable for papers to scrutiny. What you're likely to see through this process are a number of scenarios being presented to the various committees as the budget goes through its normal process. That is quite unusual, but we are in unusual times, so we will make sure that the papers take into account the best information we have about the financial impacts of COVID and the longer term impacts for the council's budget.
Thank you.
Councillor Ginman.
Thank you. I'm sure that Councillor Harvey will have considered this, but just for the record, the importance of parish councils in this discussion and in this opportunity should not be missed. And hopefully, therefore, there will be sufficient time to ensure that they get the opportunity to look at the issues that are going to arise. I'm very mindful that parish councils, because the way in which they meet and the sort of programme of timing of those, there always has to be a little bit of leeway in everything that we're trying to do. And I simply ask that care is given to that particular consideration, because it does seem to be an important way of really getting down to a local level in the consideration and discussion.
Parish and town councils are extremely important, and that's why they're the very first group that we're going out to consult next month. So we have them engaging at the very front end of the process, and hopefully helping to shape the priorities that we then take forward through the rest of the process.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll now move on to the leaders of the various groups. I'll start, if I may, with Councillor Selden.
Thank you, Leader. We recognise wholeheartedly the difficulties that are coming up with this budget setting process, coupled with the uncertainty about central government funding, and of course what we mustn't forget is some of the difficulties facing businesses, and the business rate income that we keep may well be severely impacted by businesses as they find it more and more difficult to trade. So we hope that all these things will be taken into consideration. I hear what the Section 151 officer is saying about the timings, but I think the latest I've known a settlement figure to be produced was actually between Christmas and New Year. And I think it was the day before New Year's Eve when I think they were hoping that nobody really noticed what it really said. So this is going to be an extraordinarily difficult process, and I have a wholehearted sympathy with Councillor Harvey of some of the things that she has to do. Thank you, Leader.
Okay, Councillor Matthews.
Thank you, Leader. You caught me on the hop, actually. Yeah, could I ask Councillor Harvey, please, if you'd be so kind, under the opinions of various groups under action, you've got independently led focus group consultations. This will include businesses. Can you tell us, Councillor Harvey, who else is involved apart from the local business people? And do they normally give you a comprehensive report, or is it, rather light on content? If you could just explain that. And also, if you could, you've referred to the financial pressures. Are you having any feedback from LGA or anywhere else owing to the fact that the country generally is in serious financial straits owing to this virus, that the financials will be very serious, to say the least? And do you anticipate that we may well inevitably have to put up with some cutbacks in services, except some of the vital ones? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Councillor Matthews. Well, I think we all agreed that it's really tough times out there. I think, inevitably we will be having to look for savings in the way that we deliver services. So I think that is a starting point that is not going to be a surprise to anybody, I don't think. It would be nice if we were getting more clarity out of government, but government doesn't have its troubles to seek right now. So I can understand why, they are, they will be following the timetable as usual and giving us clarity. I think probably it's usually on Christmas Eve or thereabouts. So I don't see that there's any likely change in that, and we've heard from the 151 officer that timetable is expected to be retained. As far as engagement with stakeholders, well, last year when we did the budget consultation, we actually had a half-day workshop that was held at one of a large venue in the city, where businesses and third sector organisations were invited to come along, and we had quite a decent response in terms of the number of people in the room, and people also commented online and in written form as well. So we'll try and be as flexible as we possibly can. It's unlikely that we'll be able to have an in the room type event this year, but it may be with the wonders of technology that there are other ways in which we can have more interactive engagement with stakeholder groups. And I think that'll be part of what we'll be discussing with the consultants when we've got them on board, in terms of how we reach out to all the relevant stakeholder groups and try and seek their views on priorities.
Right, thank you, Councillor Harvey, thank you.
Yes, I think it's a very valid point, Councillor Matthews, as we go forward with all the pressures on central government finance. Yes, not easy times. Perhaps I should have said introduce each of the group leaders. I'm doing it in a reverse alphabetical order today. So the next person will be Councillor Marsh, then Councillor Lester, and finish off with Councillor Hardwick. So Councillor Marsh next.
Thank you very much, Leader. Yes, one thing I would request is that, as we're able, I'm very glad that the parishes are going to be consulted earlier, because I know that they've got many of them are setting their precept this month. Would it be possible to have a few key questions to bring to their attention, so that, when I'm attending a meeting, I've got some headings to run them through? because obviously just going, well, what do you think about next year? We'll need something, something a bit more pointed than that. I did feel last year that the consultation for third sectors and businesses was very useful. So I do hope that something like that can be rerun perhaps online, and that also small businesses will be able to contribute. I'm also aware that I think there were some question marks about whether the savings that have provisionally been in-house savings for next year, that whether some of them may turn out in the changed circumstances we find ourselves, whether they will turn out to be practical. So I assume that reviewing those will also be part of the whole preparation of the budget. And yes, best wishes to you, the team, and our Section 1.5 officer for your efforts on our behalf.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Marsh. I mean, we are going through a budget review process now in terms of our in-year budget, and the work that we're doing on that is very much setting the scene for what will be the budgeting process for next year. So yes, we are doing it through the lens of the work we're doing already on what the pressures and the savings look like.
Thank you. And next is Councillor Lester.
Yes, thank you. The consultation process, it's never an easy thing, always a challenge to engage as many people and organisations as possible. So good luck with that. It's really important that that happens, and we wish you well with that. Some interesting points. I mean, Councillor Harvey says consulting on budgets doesn't light everyone's fire. I agree with her, but everybody's interested in how the money's spent. And I think some interesting comments have been made about COVID and about the waste consultation. So we were wondering if it would probably be a good way of engaging with members of the public to write to every household to tell them about this budget consultation, but use that letter to make any key information known about the COVID situation and the impact that will have, and also to warn members of the public about the necessity to engage with the waste consultation as well. So there's just an idea. It's obviously got a cost. I appreciate that. We know that. But when you've got three big issues and a consultation when the council's finances are challenged as much as they are because of COVID, it would seem a really important way of engaging with members of the public, but also mentioning two other key issues that have to be discussed. So that there's just a thought there. It's really encouraging to see that you're going to consult with parish councils. Absolutely. And we're really pleased that that will continue and as soon as possible. And it is now more imperative than ever to engage with businesses. So that is really important, and we support that. But the other factor in all of this is engagement, I think, with the NHS and healthcare providers, because they are responsible for some of the biggest spend in this county when it comes to residents, and that spend has a huge knock-on impact on the way council delivers its services. So I would hope that there's a comprehensive consultation exercise, a two-way discussion with our healthcare provider partners, because that has a dramatic impact on our budgets, and I think that needs to be addressed, and we would welcome that engagement. Thank you.
Do you care to respond to that, Councillor Harvey?
Yes, well, I would hope that we will be using the opportunities that present themselves during normal business to be injecting discussions in on the budget with through Health and Wellbeing Board and through other engagements that we have with our health partners and through the public health agenda also. you're absolutely right. It's a huge part of our statutory service provision, engaging and meshing effectively with between health and social care. And we'll continue to do everything we can to try and make sure we're working effectively together, and very much take your points about using every opportunity to try and highlight consultations that are in the pipeline. One of the things that we're trying to get pulled together at the moment is a more comprehensive overview of the communications requirement that we've got through a communications strategy, so that we can have that as a live document and be looking across the comms work that we're needing to do for all aspects of the council's operation, and to try and make better use of the opportunities that we have to engage with people, and at the same time highlight other things that they might be interested in.
Thank you. Councillor Crockett, did you want to respond to that as well?
Yes, thank you, Leader. I just wanted to reassure everybody that Stephen Vickers, who's our Director for Health and Adults Social Care, is completely engaging with our partners at every opportunity. We all know him as somebody who is scrupulous in his work, and he is addressing this at every opportunity.
Thank you for that assurance. And finally to Councillor Hardwick.
Thank you, Leader. I think most points have been made, but I commend the comprehensive consultation that's proposed. I think with this COVID pandemic, people have engaged a little bit more with council and are showing a little bit more interest, and I believe that we might receive more comments with regards to the budget than the normal practice. So I fully commend the approach that's being made.
Thank you. I'll just ask the scrutiny chairs who haven't spoken yet, just because they're going to be involved in this consultation process, whether they have any particular comments about that. So Councillor Gandy, first of all.
My only comment, I mean, the process I think is thorough. My only comment would be, are we intending, as we have done previously, for once the adults and children's scrutiny committees have had their discussions on the budget, for them to then feed it into the general scrutiny's discussion? Yes, thank you.
And Councillor Swinglehurst.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, so the timetable is fine for the scrutiny committee. I think the planned consultation seems thorough, and and hopefully actually that people are getting more confident online because of the coronavirus, and actually that we may find, I'm a bit glass half full about that myself. So I mean, hopefully that will be a good thing, and it would be great to get that extra level of consultation on board. So yeah, that's fine, and I wish Councillor Harvey and the team all the best.
Thank you. Is anybody on the Cabinet wish to make any further comments or observations, or shall we move straight to the recommendation? Councillor Davis.
Yeah, just a request, and it is something that's come up from residents when we talk about consultations and sending out letters. Can we do something that allows individuals to opt out of receiving those letters and have them electronically instead? Not only is it a cost saving, but also for the environmental purposes, whether or not we can put that into the system, because I've had quite a few complaints from residents about receiving letters.
Kate Charlton, I don't know whether you have any particular view on that. I think we're getting better at having email addresses for particular businesses, but I don't know whether the GDPR sort of issues that's often used as an excuse for not doing things. But I know public companies will ask if you want to have a copy of their annual report or have it sent by email. And the more emailing we can do, the better, and the quicker communication. It doesn't suit everybody, does it? So it kind of potentially disenfranchises those who don't have access to the internet. Anyway, Kate, do you have a particular view for us?
Yes, I mean, there is no legal way to do the consultation. It's about that you do it so that you attract the attention of as many people as possible. So if there are people who don't want to be communicated via email, we have to then make sure that they can access the consultation in a different way. Does that help, Leader?
Yeah, I think Councillor Davis would that.
Yeah, I think it's just
adds
about
an extra complication, really. I think, doesn't it?
I think it's more that we're talking about really significant financial savings, and I'm not going to take an estimate, but I would guess about 50% of people are happy to have it via an email. You're not saying you're not sending out the letters. It's just don't send out all the letters if people don't want to. And it's not necessarily for this consultation, but just for future proofing and moving us forward. I think that should be an option to be able to opt out of letters. I know I'd straight away do it.
Councillor Harvey, your sort of corporate centre interest. So I don't know whether you have a view.
Yes, well, I mean, obviously it would be helpful to go as paperless as possible. And one of the things that, we do need to be messaging on is encouraging people to sign up via the council website to receiving their council tax information electronically rather than in hard copy. And hopefully we could have a bit of a campaign over the autumn, and maybe in conjunction with the budget messaging to encourage people to do that, because if at the same time they were in a position to sign up to receive other communications from the council that way, that would be really helpful. And then we need to find a way of dealing with the not spots in terms of people who we haven't managed to coincide with, and how we make sure we contact them. But one of the initiatives that we are intending to try and take forward, budget allowing, is a much more integrated approach to knowledge management and data handling internal to the council. So hopefully some of these opportunities to get people to opt in and to opt out of various forms of communication, and also to sign up for alerts for particular areas that they might be interested in, will help to us both to communicate more effectively and to do that in the most cost-effective manner, as well as saving on paper and ink and postage and all of those other things.
I see Councillor Matthews has raised his hand. It may be that I don't see this as a political issue. So if anybody has a particular view, do jump in. Councillor Matthews.
Yeah, all I was going to ask, Leader, the fact that an awful responsibility rests on the shoulder of Mr. Lovegrove, I was going to ask through you, could Mr. Lovegrove please summarise on what's been discussed, and also how he sees the situation and where the general pressures will come from? Thank you.
Yes, I'm not sure that this is the stage for him to summarise about the pressures and that kind of thing. I think this is about the timetable. But I'll allow you to use your discretion, Mr. Lovegrove, in responding.
Your ruling, Leader. I see it. That's quite right. It's only the timetable, so I accept your ruling.
Mr. Lovegrove, do you want to just comment?
Leader, it's a very valid question about the pressures, and as we've reported to Cabinet before, the financial pressures that the council is under, and we are expecting quite a large, significant overspend this year dealing with the COVID items. But we're also receiving quite a large sum of money from government to fund those things. So I think is at your next meeting or an upcoming meeting, we'll have Q2 financial reports for you to consider. So can I suggest that we hold those questions till that meeting, where we'll have all the information to hand, and enable the Cabinet and group leaders and scrutiny chairs to ask appropriate questions.
Thank you. And I think Councillor Gandy, you've raised your hand. Is this specific about people being posted?
This is specific, not necessarily about people being posted. This is specific about trying to get to as many people as possible.
Okay, fine.
There are over 50 of us. We are all have our own wards where we all have a significant number of parish councils. We all know a significant number of individual residents, and some of us are on town and parish councils as well. So I think it is beholden to all of us, and I think it should be made clear to through some form of communication to all members exactly, you know, what the timetable is for the consultation, and help, you know, ask them to make sure that they advise as many people as possible to participate in the consultation. You know, we are on the ground, and you know, it's a duty for us to make sure that we do everything we can to encourage people to complete the consultation.
Thank you for that. I think we'd all echo that. It would be nice had there been more responses last year to the consultation. I think the Towns Fund, there's more consultation with that, and I think that's generating a lot of interest. And with this as well, hopefully we'll get a better result year after year. So I'm going to put the recommendation now to the Cabinet. So the recommendation is as follows. First, A, that the proposed timetable for the development and adoption of the medium-term financial strategy and the 2021-22 budget be approved. Second, that an in-year review of the capital investment budget be approved. And C, the approach for consulting on budget proposals for 2021-22 be approved. I don't believe there were any requests for any amendments to that. Everybody agrees with that, so I'll put those to the meeting. So I now ask Cabinet members to vote on the recommendation. Please can non-voting attendees be moved to the breakout room and the number of voting members confirmed.
We have the 8 voting members, Chair.
Thank you very much. So if you could bring up the voting form, and if everyone can vote.
All members have voted, Chair, unanimously in favour to approve those recommendations.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to close this meeting with a few comments about COVID. It's actually been quite a difficult week, I think, for the country. There are areas which are being closed down, going to different tiers. People don't quite understand what that means. It makes it more complicated. There's issues about whether going to any particular tier makes a difference to this awful virus. We in Herefordshire continue to be favoured in many ways. We seem to be doing pretty well, but the numbers have doubled, and if that continues, then we will be, I'm afraid, joining others in a much less good position in the future. So I think my message, my request to all ward councillors, to Cabinet, to anybody who's listening, is that we kind of go back to basics. I think we were doing some great things. I think there's been a bit of a feeling that we're okay. There's people who've been moving around. So I think just a reminder that we should be wearing masks wherever possible, really, because it just makes sense to look after each other. Just remind ourselves about social distancing, 2 meters. I'm sure we used to be able to work on that. Let's hope we can still do that. Young, I was going to mention particularly just the behaviours which we have been demonstrating, which have kept kept it down. We need to just remind ourselves to do that. So washing hands, using sanitizers. I think young people, I would hope they're continuing to consider not only their own safety, but those of their relatives and friends of relatives and all that lot, just to consider them and their livelihood and not just themselves. So I think it's going back to basics. It's just asking people to remember to continue to look after the rest of the community. And I can't really do very much more than encourage you all to be doing that, and really as ward members and cabinet members, being an example for that. So I just wish us all well for the next week. Yeah, it's I think Councillor Tyler might remind me, it's face, space, and
distance, social distance. Yeah.
So social distance, hands, yes.
Space. Hands, space.
Hands, space, face.
No, hands, space,
space.
Thank you. I will leave it at that. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Leader.
Thank you.